How you doing? Appreciate you for tuning in to another edition of Chomping at the Bit. Hopefully you had a great day. Hopefully you had a great weekend. Now, over the weekend, I got some interesting news from the world of college football that I want to talk about. Could we be in store for more playoff expansion? Now, just hearing that, I would love to know what you think about it. Are you a fan of playoff expansion? Because they went to 12 teams. There were discussions about a 16 team expansion. I will tell you this expansion that's being talked about is more than 16 teams. So, like I said, let me know if you're for it. Do you think 12 is fine? Would you want to go to 16? Like, what is your number? Maybe some of you would rather see 8 or 4 or back to 2. Let me know down below. But this comes from the Big Ten. There are Big Ten, I guess, officials or whatever that are considering expanding the playoff to 24 or 28. Reason being, the discussions with 16 have been kind of clouded up with deciding the at large bids and all that kind of stuff. So the way I'm reading this is 16, they're arguing probably over which conferences get how many teams. So the Big Ten's like, we'll solve it all. We'll go to 24 or 28 and make everybody happy. Once again, let me know what you think. Now, it seems like the push is for 28, but I guess 24 might be the compromise number. If they don't get the support for 28, they'll probably push for 24. We're going to look at 28. So for some of you, you might think 28's too many. It'll water down the regular season and all this kind of stuff. Like, okay. But let's really look at this in context. FCS or Division 2, they have a 24 team playoff. They make it work. Seemingly exciting every year, but okay, so there's a model there collegiately. A lot of people look at college football as like the fifth pro sport in the country. So let's look at the other pro sports. MLB, 40% of the teams make the playoff. Okay. The NFL, 43.8% make the playoffs. So you can see the trend here. The NBA and the NHL, half the league makes the playoff. So currently, the 12-team playoff, 8.8% of Division 1 teams make the playoff, which means you're getting a higher percentage by moving to 28. And it's not even close to the other pro leagues. So a 28-team playoff would mean 20% of college football teams make a playoff. Still less, like half as much as the lowest other major sport and Major League Baseball at 40%. I have been big on opportunity. 136 Division 1 teams. There's no need for us to necessarily have only 12 make it. Open it up. You'll get great matchups. You'll get big name schools in. So what's really the worry? But let's go ahead and take a look at this story, which explains kind of where the Big Ten's coming from and what they're, I guess, deciding on. So here's the first thing that I think could be a hangup for some people. The proposal does away with conference title games. The assumption would be gives you an extra week or so to fit in the longer playoff format. Conference title games, sure. I mean, they obviously have a place for college football fans. You do get some great matchups. Sometimes some of these conference title games, not that interesting. I don't think it's a plan killer, but I could see some pushback with that aspect of it. It's offering auto bids to the 4 power leagues because obviously there's no Power 5 anymore because the Pac 12 was demolished by the new landscape of college football that I keep saying, if the NCAA knew what they were doing, this could have been avoided years ago. But we know the NCAA, yeah. Okay, so looking at the 2018, Big Ten, SEC would get 7 bids each. So if you, I guess, want to know what that would look like, going off of last season, that would basically mean the Big Ten would get Oregon, Indiana, Penn State, Ohio State, which were the 4 teams they got in the 12-team playoff. But now with this one, the extra bids would go to Illinois, Iowa, and Michigan. So you get Michigan in, even though Michigan didn't have a great season last year, but big name programs. Because I feel like with college football expansion, a lot of people are weary that you extend it out enough, then you're getting teams like, a Tulane or Memphis, clogging up spots that should go to whatever. Actually, no, because SEC, Big Ten getting 7 each. That's 14 out of that's half of the 28 right there. It does say the ACC and the Big 12 will each get 5, so 24 of the 28 would go to the Power 4, big name schools, and then the other 4 would go. Well, 2 go outside Power 4, but you literally know one of those will go to Notre Dame most years, another big name program, and then the other one will go to whoever, probably like a Boise State or something. Like I don't think it's that big of a deal. And then the 2 at-large teams, which the committee would pick the 2 at-large teams, so there's a good chance the committee will just use those to get another Power 4 school. So it'll probably turn into 26 out of the 28 coming from the Big 4. And look, this is something that Big Ten could be floating out there. If it gets shot down, maybe we see that, SEC, Big Ten banding together, creating their own thing, and then college football would really get crazy. But let's keep going. So that would be your Big Ten. Your SEC schools, Texas, Georgia, Tennessee, who got into the playoff last season. Now you would be adding Alabama, which there was a lot of discussions about whether or not Alabama should have gotten in last season. This model, Alabama gets in comfortably. South Carolina, who was part of that conversation as well, even though South Carolina didn't really have much of a leg to stand on, but they're a part of it, so now they get in. And then you get Ole Miss and Missouri. Once again, big name schools. Missouri, sure, but that would be your 14 from those 2. And then ACC, you're looking at SMU, Clemson, who got in last season. The 3 new teams, Miami, Syracuse, and Louisville. Look, the ACC is a conference that's on its last legs anyway, so they may need this to go through to help keep the ACC together. Because at least with this, you guaranteed 5. Teams like Clemson, Florida State, was it like North Carolina, who were like thinking about getting out, maybe they stay because they have a pathway to a playoff bid, a playoff berth, I should say. But yeah, Clemson, Miami, SMU, Syracuse, and Louisville. Like I said, maybe normal years, instead of Syracuse and Louisville, maybe you get North Carolina and Florida State. So you got Clemson, Miami, Florida State, North Carolina consistently making a playoff. That's not a bad deal, especially with North Carolina. That's Bill Belichick. Imagine Bill Belichick as a regular in the college football playoff, the amount of drama and intrigue that would bring to it. So far, I don't see where, this should fall through. Obviously you have to get other conferences support. I feel like the SEC would be on board with this. They'll get more teams in. And the way college football is going, if the Big Ten and the SEC want something, it'll probably just happen because they are running college football. But then looking at the Big 12, you got Arizona State. Were they the only Big 12 team to make it? Yeah, I think. So the Arizona State, then you have Iowa State, BYU. You get Colorado in with all the Deion Sanders fame and everything. They would have gotten in and Baylor. So that's your 24 out of 28. Then looking at the non-power, Notre Dame and Boise State would be the two. And I did this based off of last season's like top 25 and everything. The at-large two is where it would get tricky because I don't necessarily know what the committee would do. You know, a team like LSU would be available or Kansas State. But once again, I just looked at the top 25, and the two teams in the top 25 that aren't in there yet were Army and UNLV. So the committee wanted to do right. You probably take those two, and that's your field of 28. Now, looking at that field, obviously, could every team in that group win a national title? No. But that also shouldn't be a reason not to like this. Because a lot of people talk about the 12-team playoff. You weren't going to get what you were going to get, the matchups or whatever. You'll get blowouts because everybody just looks at TCU and thinks like if it's not an SEC or Big Ten school, nobody can compete. Sure, we ended up with an Ohio State champion, but there were some really good games. I think the big part is you're just getting matchups you wouldn't necessarily see, and I think that's good for college football. Because you think about it, you could have a playoff game. I don't know how they would do the schedule, but you could sit there one day and watch Alabama, Michigan, and then maybe the second game of a doubleheader that night, you get Texas, Oregon. Who wouldn't sign up for that? Plus other matchups in there that could be, like a Baylor, Clemson type game or something like that. Like I said, I'm all for getting as many teams as you can. Now, don't need them to go like the college basketball route and be like 68, because then that's going to be just crazy scheduling. But I do think 28 could be a sweet spot. Look, when they first started talking about expansion, I floated out 32, just going crazy with it. I actually didn't think they were going to get close to that. The fact that they went to 12, I was happy for that. I wanted 16 when they were talking about like a 12-team playoff, but if they go to 28 and they're getting close to the 32 I was talking about, let's do it. Let's make it happen. Well, let's see what else the story has here. Okay, so this is the conference title game that might be a con. This would be a pro. So the format would focus on 20 playoff games on campus. So think of the environments you could get in a playoff setting. Alabama was at Bryant-Denny Stadium. I don't know the names of some of these stadiums, but like Notre Dame atmosphere, Clemson is at Death Valley, Miami and Oregon. Like you have some fun. Georgia, Between the Hedges. You have some fun atmospheres you would get to see some really good football played on. So I think that would be a W for this, because that did play really well last season, where the first round was on campus, and then from there on out, it was at bowl sites, which I do want to see. I guess they maybe keep the same bowl sites and just the extra games being on campus. That's probably how they're going to do it, which I would be okay with that. So, like I said, the committee will pick the field and pick the at-large teams. So, yeah. So this is what it talks about. They've been discussing 16 teams, but there's a bit of a battle between at-large teams and auto bids. So that's why I'm like, this format may be to like kind of gather all that, make everybody happy, and get some expansion. With expansion comes money. When you're talking about money, the NCAA is all in for making money. They won't govern anything, but they're about making money. So I think eventually something like this could happen. I'd be shocked if it happened like anytime soon. I feel like they'll let 12 teams, kind of play out for a couple of years, and then we'll start looking to this. But I'm for it. Let me know what you think. 28 too much? Not enough? Or good enough? Yeah. Or if you would, I don't know. If you have a different number in mind, let me know. Because, like I said, if you want to say 16, fine with that. If you'd rather 24 over 28, I mean, at that point, I feel like, sure. Or do you think 32 is where we need to go? Because obviously not going back. So don't sit here and say 8, 4, 2. They're not doing that. Money's not there in that anymore. The money's in whatever number they decide. So would love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments how you feel about this. Is the Big Ten onto something? Do you think this gets shot down by another conference? Like, tell me which conference you think wouldn't sign off on this. Like I said, Big Ten, SEC should be okay with this. You get a guaranteed 7. It's most of your conference there. ACC gets 5. They should love this and sign off on it. Like, if the ACC doesn't go for this, that means the ACC knows that, like, Clemson, Florida State, and all those teams have, like, reached a point of no return, and they just want out no matter what, and expect to see them moving on if you see this get shot down by the ACC. Big 12 should be okay with this. So now the non-power conferences, maybe, because they're only getting 2, and one of those spots will be taken by Notre Dame every year. Well, at least any year Notre Dame is halfway decent, they're going to take one of those spots. So you're still getting your 1, which they're okay with for a 12-team playoff. But so yeah, I don't know who would say no, but you let me know. Appreciate you tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed this. If you did, hit the like button. Follow, subscribe, rate, whatever you want to do helps definitely. But more importantly, like, subscribe, follow. Appreciate all of you. Football season is right around the corner. So thinking about some things for football season. I'll probably let you know later on. So if you, like I said, follow and subscribe, you'll see updates when I kind of figure out some things. You already see we're already in NFL mode. So expect a Patriots video probably sometime this week. But thanks again. I'm out of here. You enjoy the rest of your day. Be safe. God bless. All right. See you next time. Bye.